Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intentional Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dalton. This is episode 283. And as you know, we're in our season talking about the spiritual art of work and life. Today, I've got Brandi Bernoskie on the show. And let me go ahead and tell you what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to be talking about the success trap, how we can allow success to trap us, how we need to detach from the models of success, bring in some vulnerability to our conversations, and really understanding who we are and what we want. Letting go of the idea that there is one path to success, and oftentimes success, purpose, meaning is right where you already are. It's just opening up how we're viewing the world. So let's get started. There's a spiritual art to work and life. I'm not talking about sitting in silence on a mountaintop or chanting mantras for hours a day, but finding meaning in your work, in everyday life, can increase your productivity, boost your happiness, and yes, make you feel so much better about your days. I'm Tanya Dalton, a best-selling author, motivational speaker, 7-figure entrepreneur, and oh yeah, wife and mom. So I get it. I understand the stress of daily life. But as a productivity expert, I'm here to help you choose the extraordinary life. This season, we will be exploring work, parenting, personal growth, and more. Because when you choose to be intentional, every day can be filled with meaning. Let's create the world we want our daughters to live in. This is the Intentional Advantage. Brandi and I were laughing just now because we had a conversation just to kind of, talk and figure out like, where do we think we want this to go? Just a loose outline. And we started talking and we were like, wait, no, we should be recording that because there were so many nuggets. And this is what our conversations are always like, aren't they, Brandi? Where we're just like, we dive deep with each other and we have these really great conversations. And so often we both say, I wish other people could hear some of this, or we should be recording this because this is gold. It's what shifts me and it's what gets me excited about what I get to do.
Yeah.
When I get to talk to you and we bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think there's a lot of magic that happens in conversations with great people, especially people that you trust and that bring vulnerability to the conversation about what they're going through. And I sometimes find that if I sit down and I try to just think of something by myself, or I try to problem solve by myself, I'm limited in what's possible, because when I'm in conversation with someone, that person can act so easily as both like a mirror, an idea generator for me too. Like we bounce ideas off of each other, and sometimes you see something I don't see right away.
Yep.
And then it opens up something entirely new for me.
Yeah, I think that's so true. The idea of the mirror, because sometimes we can't see our own magic. We can't see our own greatness, and we need other people to show us. And sometimes we can't see our own weaknesses either.
That too.
And we need people to show it to us. Like, why are you doing that? Or is this really what you want? Because I do think a lot of times we're chasing down things that don't really matter to us, but we do it because it's what everybody else is doing, or this is what we think we're supposed to be doing. And we need our friends to call us out on that.
Yeah.
And I love that you are that for me. I am that for you. And this is what I want more women to experience, is these types of conversations where we call each other out in the best possible, most loving way. And I think that's really, really powerful. One of the things that you and I have been talking about and kind of exploring, because you and I meet about every other week. We have just a standing meeting. I love it. I look forward to it. It's so amazing. But we talk about how you can sometimes get stuck in success. And that's really what I want us to dive into a little bit today in this conversation, knowing that there are people listening in.
Yeah. And I think there are so many different ways to be stuck in different models of success. And there's sometimes models that you have not built for yourself, but you've taken on because society's built them for you, or industries built them for you, businesses built them for you. I know one for me has really been the model of an agency. And when I started out, I was just a freelance website developer. Like that's what I was doing. And I started building a team, and suddenly someone introduced to me that I had an agency, and I hadn't thought about this previously to that kind of being shown to me. And as I started getting deeper into this idea that I had an agency, I definitely attached to what a successful agency might look like. And what sort of certifications or, awards or metrics of success that aren't really my metrics of success that define what a successful agency might be. And it does. It's like now I found, in the past month, I'm really beginning to see those things differently and really detach from them and ask myself, but what do I want? What does my success look like? Not what are those models that I've unexpectedly brought into my life and attached my meaning and value sometimes to.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
I think we get really caught up in the overachiever identity a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just speaking from my own experience, like I love being an overachiever. And really, I don't love being an overachiever because it means that you never feel successful, quite frankly, because you're constantly striving to overachieve and to meet others' expectations. And I think that's a big thing. We've definitely been talking about that on our calls. I like that word detaching because I think it's like disentangling yourself from the tentacles that society puts on you, that your parents put on you, that other people put on you, these identities. It's when I think about my energy, I think of it kind of like a snow globe, right? Like I have this bubble of energy around me and that energy inside of the bubble belongs to me, but people tack up on the outside of this bubble, these little signs of who you are and what the expectations are for you and for how you're going to, interact with society. And I feel like when we do that, it filters all the information that comes into us and it filters what goes out because it's like, all these like flyers plastered all on the wall, but it's on this energy around us that changes and shifts our reality. And I think that's really powerful when you start to say, I don't need all of that. I'm going to detach.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but it's so good to do.
It is. It's really important to be able to say, that's not mine and I'm not carrying it anymore. And I need to pick up new things that are mine. And sometimes there's this in between of defining what those new things are. And also, I feel like because those models of success exist and are so often pushed upon us, one of the things I'm really trying to do is not just detach from those models of success, but detach from like rigidly defining myself in addition to any new model that I maybe even create for myself, and know that there's going to be ebbs and flows. And even when I set goals that are my goals and that aren't anyone else's goals, that I can constantly be revisiting them and feeling into them to make sure that they're still the right ones for me. And realizing that it's like when you detach from those old models, you're also then detaching your value or worth from even achieving anything that you set out to achieve personally. Like there's kind of a deepening to who you are, I think, in the process.
Ooh, a deepening to who you are. Look at you waxing philosophical. I mean, I think you have a philosophy degree, right?
I do. And that just, it comes in unexpectedly at times.
It does. Well, that's part of your magic, honestly. But I like what you're talking about here, because this is definitely something that we've been exploring with you for sure, is this idea of how do we, literally before we started hitting record, I'm like, Brandi, I don't even know how to say what you do. Because I don't want to say Brandi does websites. Now, let me back up here for a second and say Brandi makes incredible websites and works with amazing, incredible people. Brene Brown, yep, Brandi does her website. Martha Beck, yep, Brandi does her website. Tanya Dalton. Oh, wait, did I just put myself in that same class?
Oh, yes, as you should.
So you do make these beautiful websites, but you're not, first of all, a web designer.
Nope.
You're not a web strategist, even though when you're working with your clients, you talk about how the website is more than just a website and it is this whole strategy. You are so far beyond that. And it's so hard to define you and who you are. And I think that's a really interesting thing for people to think about is, it's not just how we identify ourselves, but how we sometimes can limit ourselves with how we identify. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about that for you? Because I think that would be really helpful.
We can, because I've been struggling with this, I think, my whole life, because I was a theater major I've got a bachelor in theater, minors in physics and math, went for a second degree. It was in physics, philosophy, and religion.
Because Brandi doesn't do anything halfway. Let's just go ahead and throw that out there.
And I have always been very interdisciplinary with the type of work that I do, whether it was like the academic work or even the work that I do now. I just naturally bring my whole self to the picture. So yes, like I started out originally as a website developer, like I can code stuff. My team is even better than me, like at coding these days, because they do it more than I do. But for me, like there's a synthesis that happens for me between all of the business knowledge I have, all of the website kind of strategy knowledge that I have, all of the web development knowledge I have of like, how can it be done and executed? And then these other pieces of me that I bring to the table of like the philosopher and the scientist.
Yes.
And, someone who's deeply spiritual at the same time that really go into informing the work that I do with clients. And I don't know how to put a label on that. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, digital website strategist, digital strategist. And those are some of the things I do, but they're not all I bring to clients. Like sometimes I will push some clients to get out of those traps that, we sometimes fall into with business, whether it's like, oh, well, I need to create this program because this person created it and I want to model my success after theirs. And I will sometimes dig in with clients and discover that's actually not something they really want to do. And that's exciting for me.
Oh yeah, because they're living to their own, they're in their own success trap.
Exactly. Even when I just began to start developing websites and started working with clients, this was maybe back in like 2012 or so, I was doing a lot of blogs because I was a blogger, and the clients would send me these kind of like lists of all the social media that they needed to showcase on their website sidebar. And I would so often ask them, like, do you have time to like do all of the social media and live the life that you want to live? Because I'm like, 6 platforms is a lot of social media platforms to be on.
That's a lot.
And a lot of these people were doing it all themselves. And so I just, very lightly then would push back and be like, are your ideal people in these platforms? Do you get energized by working in the social media platform, or do you hate it? Like maybe if you hate it, you should just give yourself permission not to do it. So that's always been a part of what I've done with clients.
What is that concept? If you don't like it, don't do it. Wait, what? You mean we don't have to do it?
Yeah, I know. It's insane, but true.
You are so good at like you dig in and you bring, first of all, you bring a lot of knowledge, and you bring, because you are seriously, Brandi is like crazy smart, but you bring all this knowledge and you bring all this experience, and you've had all these interactions with amazing, incredible people. And let's be honest, one of the things that we have talked about on the show before is this idea of your backpack, that you're gathering the things in your backpack, right? The wins, the successes, the fancy, shiny degrees, but you're also gaining knowledge through being in rooms with other people. You're also gaining knowledge through some of the projects you take on. And you take on a lot of, it's not baggage, but you take on a lot. And so why should you not be evolving? So if you're still doing the same thing you were doing 5, 10, 15 years ago, are you really growing? Are you moving forward? And I love for you, like it is like this idea, this concept that it's this whole, holistic idea of who are you? Mm-hmm. You're not just who you are on your webpage. It's so much more. Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a question everybody should be asking themselves more often. Why am I doing this? Do I like this? And if you don't, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
But we don't ask those questions a lot of times.
We don't. And sometimes you don't always have to change what you do. You just need to shift a little bit of how you do it, or reposition, or work with different clients. Like there are so many ways to reposition and level up. And we forget that sometimes too.
Yeah.
I remember about a year and a half into being a full-time web developer and having quit my job and all that stuff, I actually thought I had to leave development because honestly, I was working with a lot of clients. I was working a lot of hours, and I didn't have the sense of fulfillment that I hoped I would have. And for me, didn't mean I had to give up website stuff. It just meant I had to deepen it, and I had to bring in my philosophy background. And well, at that point, like the little business background I had, but I felt like I had to bring more to my clients and show up more as my full self. And that became more meaningful to me, even though I was saying, like, I didn't have to move to a different industry or a different type of work. I just had to change how I was doing it. And that lesson has stayed with me over and over and over again throughout the years. Every year I look at, I mean, I wouldn't even say every year, probably every like 6 months, I really take a good look at, are we working with the people that we want to be working with? How can we deepen the relationships that we have? Because I'm a relationships person. I love really deep relationships.
You definitely are. You are like an amazing connector too, because you're like, ooh, you over here and you over here, you need to know each other. And you're constantly connecting people.
Yeah.
It's one of your superpowers. It really is.
It is. And I attribute that in part to my theater background, because I have this really great understanding of people and of how like personalities work together because of that background, because it just helped me see into people in a way that I don't think I would have if I hadn't done the training.
Yeah. I like this idea too, that because so often we feel like if we're not satisfied or not happy, that it means that we have to make this drastic change. Like, oh, and I see this a lot of times with purpose, right? Where they're like, oh, for my purpose, I have to totally quit my job. I need to go do these things over here. And a lot of times it's like, no, this idea of opening up, almost like unfolding and unpacking who you are, that can bring this richness to what you're doing. It creates more meaning. And I think that's the whole thing. It's like finding the meaning right where you are right now.
Yeah.
That you don't have to go somewhere else. You don't have to change industries or careers or quit your job, leave your company. You don't have to become an entrepreneur. It's right there. It's opening up and unpacking your gifts and letting those shine in the spot where you are. Because you could easily think, what does philosophy have to do with what I'm doing, right?
Yep.
Or religion or any of these. You could say these are so unconnected. And yet it's you choosing to connect them and bring in these parts of you. I think for some people, that's hard at times because we feel like maybe at work too, we're supposed to be at work and this is who we are. And we put on our armor and we're like, okay, all these other things are separate from us when really that's a part of us.
Yeah.
That's there all along. And that would bring us a lot of the happiness. You do that so beautifully, I think, because
Thank you.
Of the way that you approach your work. It has so much meaning because it's inclusive of every aspect of you and your clients. Because I know from working with you, it's like when you're sitting down and we know each other probably much deeper than a lot of your clients, but you're like, Tanya, what about this? Like, you don't showcase how funny you are. Like, we need to have more of that in here, or you need to showcase. And I love that you like pull that out, and that comes from your gifts, and that allows my gifts to shine more. And I think maybe if we realize that, stop feeling like we have to put on this armor and be a certain way because that's what success looks like, we would be so much happier.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw this really interesting documentary where they were talking to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who of course wrote Hamilton, who's amazing and incredible. I thought this was so fascinating because they were talking about him writing Hamilton. And he was like, when I was writing Hamilton, I would come up with ideas as I was walking down the street. And some of his best songs he wrote while riding in the subway. And he was like, I had nothing to lose. He said, Alexander Hamilton and we were the same. Like, I was Alexander Hamilton, he was me, and it felt so easy to connect with him. I had nothing to lose, just like Alexander Hamilton. And he says, now I'm Aaron Burr. I have everything to lose. And I thought, oh, that was so interesting because, you have these juxtaposition of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr in Hamilton, in history, technically, who one has nothing to lose, comes from nothing and is looking to rise up, and he doesn't know what he's doing, so he just goes for it. And you have this other one who comes from a family of influence, who has a lot to lose, and he feels really trapped and really stuck. And you hear that in a lot of the lyrics where he's singing, right, about how stuck he is. And now Lin-Manuel Miranda is like, man, I've shifted. Now I feel like I have everything to lose. And it constrains me and it keeps me from stretching and reaching out and trying these other things. And I was like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I thought that was fascinating.
That is brilliant. And I think that's where a lot of us find ourselves, where it's like, I quit my job. I didn't have much to lose. People thought I was crazy when I did it because what was I doing giving up like a really great job at a nonprofit to work for myself? And when you start to kind of climb that success ladder that society defines, it can feel like I don't know, like it gets more and more narrow as you get up to the top and you're like clinging tighter and tighter
And you're
and you're really afraid you're going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into situations that call you to kind of be more of yourself or to evolve to the next level, it doesn't always look like climbing higher on the ladder. And this is something like I know we've talked a lot about too, is
Yeah, we have.
Sometimes the scale up looks like a scale down first.
Without question.
It's such an interesting concept of how
Mm-hmm.
one thing can look like its opposite initially. But when you let go of some of what's not working for you, you start to create that space for the new to emerge and for you to evolve. Like, I feel like that's really key, is like having space to evolve and play and ask yourself, like, wait, what do I want here? Maybe it's going to change. And maybe that's going to look like a little bit of contraction first so that there's a greater expansion that allows it.
Ooh, I like what you said there, because it's true. And a lot of times our success ladder is leaning against the wrong wall.
Oh yeah, that happens too.
And so we have to say, oh, okay, I totally agree, because we've been having conversations for the past year about how scaling up looks like scaling down. And it can be difficult, not just for yourself internally, but because other people start to question you. Like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you scaling back on team? Or why are you not going for this promotion? Or why are you... People question it.
Yes.
And you have to really just be okay with who you are and what you want, because it is that idea of having the space to evolve. If you put yourself in this tiny little box, there's no room for growth. You're stuck in the tiny box. It's like if you grow a watermelon in a clear square box, which is one of the things they actually do in Japan. They grow them in these clear square boxes. So the watermelons, they end up being shaped like a square because it fills the space, which they do that because then it fits in their refrigerators. It's kind of genius, not going to lie. But, how are we doing that in our own lives where we're putting ourselves in these tiny little boxes, giving yourself that space to grow? It means you have to clear your plate of some things. And maybe it does mean I like where I am in my company, or I like where my revenues are with my business, or I'm really happy with these things because I want to lean more into deeper relationships with my clients, or because I want to spend more time leaning into my family life and being home at a certain time and being more involved there. And that's okay. There's something within our society that says success is only who you are at work.
Yeah.
We've definitely had conversations in the podcast about the 6 pillars of you, not just that financial one of status and who you are at work, but also the relational, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the recreational. And creating this space allows you to really explore those areas, but even explore that area of financial even more, right? Because it is, who do I want to be at work and how do I want to bring my gifts in here? And if there's no space, you're a square watermelon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I think that's really important, not to neglect parts of ourselves, like just not to neglect them. I mean, I will completely admit, as I've been growing this business over the past few years, I have lost my hobbies.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm in a space where I'm really asking myself, like, what is it that I want to do just because I want to do it and just because it's fun? It's like, it's not about what do I want to do that'll grow the business, or how can I like improve, like learn something new for the business, or it's just about like, what do I think that I've always wanted to do because I think it'd be fun? And can I find the resources in my area for that? And if I can't, there's a thing called YouTube, and there's lots of like fun things to do. So, I mean, I really, since I was a teenager, I have wanted to learn to play the fiddle. And I'm like getting to the point now where I'm like, I think I'm going to start making time for this. And I don't know all the first steps.
I think I'm a fiddle player.
And I might be terrible. I probably will be. It's probably not going to come into my work. It's not going to make me more money in my work because it'll probably be really painful for people to listen to me. But it's, why not?
That's okay.
Why not just have that space to play? Like, that's as important as the space to work or the space to care for your family, or like all of these pieces of us. We have to just make space, and also know that like different times in our life will mean that the balance between the spaces looks different.
Without question.
So there are times that like the family space is going to take more priority than the workspace or the hobby space. And that's definitely happened to me in the past too, where I've had to put some of the things aside because I've had other priorities in, caring for my mom as she went through cancer, things like that. So I think it's just really important to just realize that it's that one pillar, that's that work pillar, that status pillar, that financial pillar is not the only pillar around us.
What's funny though is this, because I'm the same, where I've been saying, I don't feel like I have any hobbies. I mean, other than cooking, which I have to do every night anyways.
Yes.
And I love cooking, but I've been talking about exploring painting. I used to paint when I was younger. And you know what people say to me right away, especially people in the business world? Are you going to start selling paintings?
Yep.
And I'm like, oh God, can't I just paint for fun? Like, it's okay to have a hobby. It's okay to have a passion that you don't monetize.
Yeah.
That is just for you, for the sheer enjoyment. So I love the idea of you playing the fiddle.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
No, I haven't really told anyone that. I'd asked my mom about it when I was younger, and she was we were investing in a bunch of other things for me, like acting lessons and singing lessons and things like that. So she said no at the time. And I kind of regret never getting into it. Like, it was the same for me with archery, where it's like for years I wanted to do archery. And then finally I made the space to do archery. And now like this thing with the fiddle is coming up, and I'm actually excited that I'm probably going to be terrible at it, because I think it's actually good to do things that we're not always great at just because it's something new, and because I think I'm going to enjoy it. I might not. And if I don't, I give myself that permission to give it up after, I have to give it a little time, of course, because I am going to be terrible at first, but I have to give it a little time. But I'm willing to give myself space to kind of be terrible at something and fail and discover if I'm good at it or not, like over time or not. That's okay.
I love that for you. I love that because I do think there's a lot to be said for nourishing and feeding our soul just because it feels good. There's nothing wrong with just feeling good because you just want to do something. I think that's really, really powerful. As I said before we even hit record, I'm like, my concern is that we could talk for like hours. So
we could, and we have at times.
We have, yes, without question. And Brandi and I, we sometimes go away and we rent a house with some other women, and we have the most amazing conversations. And it's so deep. And so every time I walk away, I feel like, I feel renewed and I feel excited. And that's part of why I wanted y'all to hear Brandi today. But Brandi, obviously we don't normally finish our conversations like this, but if you could give the listeners one piece of advice, one nugget to walk away from this conversation that they heard today, what would that be?
I really think it's important to just always be evolving and just recognize that sometimes evolving looks like taking a couple steps back first. I mean, if you really want to kind of connected to something, this is what archery was for me. It's reminding yourself that you have to pull the arrow back first. You have to create that tension, which sometimes feels really uncomfortable, in order to get the forward momentum. And, for me, like that's been the biggest thing, is just recognizing like evolution looks really different at different times. And it's very often very uncomfortable, but that, when you're honoring yourself and you're honoring those impulses that you have within you, that's really one of the best things that we can do, and know that it's going to help you grow, even if you don't know how it's going to help you grow.
Oh, I like that. It's going to help you grow, even if you don't know how it's going to help you grow. We don't have to know the how.
No,
we really don't. Let go of having to know how to do the thing or how it's going to happen. Just let it unfold. Honestly, I could have kept hitting record or leaving record on, because Brandi and I continue to talk for another 30 minutes. I told you, we can talk on and on and on, but I wanted to unpack this episode with you just really quickly, because I feel like there were so many nuggets that she shared that we talked about that were so powerful. This idea that people, and sometimes those people are ourselves, we put ourselves in these tiny little boxes. So opening up that space to allow evolution and growth to happen, that was incredibly powerful. Something she and I have been talking a lot about in our private conversations. I really love how we talked about that ladder for success and how it narrows, and how sometimes that can really make us feel stuck. This idea of let's not limit what is possible. I think that's really, really powerful. It's something I definitely talked about in The Joy of Missing Out, that idea of adding that conjunction and to who you are. You're not just who you are on your business card or on your website, you're so much more. There's all these amazing, beautiful facets to who you are. So allowing those to shine, allowing those to come forward, and even that idea that she talked about of bringing in those aspects of yourself into the work you're already doing, how that brings so much meaning to your job, to your work, to your business, whatever it is you do. So I want to encourage you to take a really good look at who you are and what you want to do. I know for me, one of the things I've really been stepping into over the past year is speaking. I love speaking. I was a performer since the age of literally 6 months old, but I've spoken on stages with thousands and thousands of people, even when I was a young child. So really stepping into that aspect of me has been an evolution I've been really exploring myself. And I'm really doubling down on that this year. So if you are at a company or a corporation or an organization or a foundation and you're looking for speakers, make sure to take a look at tanyadalton.com/speaking. Forward it to whoever you need to in your company. I love speaking and I would love to come and speak with you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, speaking of speaking, that I had with Brandi. I really hope that listening to these types of conversations, because this is what we're doing all season long, listening to these conversations is going to open up some ideas for you, just like it does for me. It shifts me, it changes me, and it evolves who I am. If you want to connect with Brandi, and I definitely encourage you to do that, I will have links to everywhere to connect with her in the show notes. So you can go to tanyadalton.com, just look for episode 283, and I have all the links to connect with Brandi there. All right, here's what I want you to walk away from today's show really recognizing and thinking about. Who are you? If you were to add that word "and" to your business card, what would it say? How would you explore who you are, and what is it you can do that has no monetary value, doesn't affect your status or anything, but you just explore purely for the sake of fun and enjoyment? Because truly, when we look at ourselves outside of the tiny little boxes, when we understand we are so much more than how others define us, that's when we have the intentional advantage. Ready to take action on what we talked about on today's episode? The easiest way to get started is my free Take 5 challenge. 5 minutes a day for 5 days. That's it. And yet it will boost your productivity and double your happiness, I can promise you. Thousands have taken the challenge. Go to tanyadalton.com/take5 to join, or click the link in the episode notes. And don't forget to follow The Intentional Advantage on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode.